On October 30th, 1974, as the sun dipped below the rugged Colorado peaks, the Stanley Hotel stood shrouded in an eerie twilight, its white facade glowing with an otherworldly luminescence. The chilling wind howled through the silent corridors, carrying whispers of forgotten tales and lost souls. Inside, the grand halls, usually bustling with the clamor of guests, were now eerily quiet, their opulence overshadowed by an unsettling stillness. The atmosphere seemed to pulse with an ancient energy, hinting at the shadows and secrets that lay hidden within the hotel's walls. Stephen King and his wife, Tabitha, had arrived seeking refuge from the encroaching winter, unaware that their brief stay would thrust them into the heart of the hotel's dark mysteries. As they settled into room 407, a room infamous for its spectral history, an inexplicable chill permeated the air, making the ordinary seem extraordinarily sinister. The hotel's silence grew heavier with the fall of night, and what began as an innocent retreat quickly morphed into a nightmarish encounter with a world where the past and present intertwined in haunting and inexplicable ways.
Stephen, known for his love of the macabre, was fascinated by the hotel's storied past. He had come to explore its legendary hauntings, not realizing that he would soon become part of the very fabric of its mysteries. As they checked in, the elderly receptionist handed them the key to room 407 with a faint smile. "Enjoy your stay," she said, her voice laced with a cryptic undertone. "And don't be surprised if you hear things at night. The fourth floor has its own kind of presence." The couple ascended to the fourth floor, the old elevator creaking under their weight. Stephen felt a chill as they approached room 407, and an inexplicable sense of unease settling over him. The corridor seemed longer and darker than he had expected, and the silence was punctuated only by the occasional groan of the building settling. Room 407's door stood slightly ajar, inviting them in. Inside, the room was luxuriously furnished, but Stephen couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. As they unpacked, Stephen's eyes kept darting to the shadows in the corners of the room. The air felt heavy, as if charged with a presence just beyond his sight. He dismissed it as nerves, but a nagging feeling of being watched persisted. Despite the room's comfort, an unsettling awareness lingered in the back of his mind, hinting at the unknown that lay ahead. Night fell over the Stanley Hotel, and the once lively corridors fell silent. Stephen found himself restless, drawn to the empty hallways that seemed to breathe with an ancient life of their own. The quiet was thick and almost palpable, pressing in on him as he wandered. His footsteps echoed softly, mingling with the faint, disembodied sounds that seemed to come from nowhere. He reached the grand staircase, its dimly lit elegance casting long shadows that stretched and twisted across the walls. As he descended, a cold draft swept past him, carrying with it a fleeting whisper. The sound was so faint that it could have been the wind, but it felt distinct, almost like a child's voice, full of a haunting innocence. Stephen's heart quickened as he tried to follow the sound, his curiosity piqued and his senses on high alert. The whispers led him to the concert hall, where the large wooden doors stood slightly ajar. Pushing them open, he was met with a vast, empty space. The grand piano sat in the center, untouched, its keys silent. As Stephen approached, a soft, haunting melody began to play, emanating from the stage. He squinted into the dim light, trying to discern the source of the sound. There, at the edge of the stage, he saw a translucent figure, a woman, her form faint and shimmering. The apparition's face was obscured by shadows, but her presence was undeniably real. Stephen's breath caught in his throat as she turned toward him, the melody stopping abruptly. The room grew colder, and the figure's eyes seemed to lock onto his, filled with a profound sadness. The encounter was both mesmerizing and terrifying, a glimpse into a world that defied explanation. As the figure slowly faded, Stephen was left alone, grappling with the reality of what he had just witnessed. The following morning, Stephen awoke with a lingering sense of dread. The previous night's events replayed in his mind, a haunting melody and a ghostly figure that refused to be forgotten. Determined to understand the origins of these strange occurrences, he decided to delve into the history of the Stanley Hotel. Armed with a notepad and camera, he ventured to the hotel's library, hoping to uncover some clues. The library was a cozy retreat filled with the musty scent of old books. Stephen began sifting through dusty ledgers and historical accounts, seeking any mention of the spectral tales he had heard. His search led him to a leather-bound journal detailing the hotel's history and its infamous guests. One entry caught his eye, a housekeeper named Elizabeth Wilson, who had suffered a tragic accident in the early 1900s and was rumored to haunt the premises, particularly room 407. As Stephen continued to read, he discovered a pattern of unsettling events linked to the hotel: unexplained deaths, sightings of ghostly figures, and eerie sounds. The more he uncovered, the clearer it became that the Stanley Hotel was more than just a setting for his latest story. It was a place where the past and present collided, where restless spirits lingered, unable to move on. Stephen's research was interrupted by a sudden, chilling breeze that swept through the library, causing the pages of his notebook to flutter wildly. The sensation was all too familiar, evoking the same eerie feeling he had experienced the previous night. He glanced around, the sense of being observed growing stronger. It was clear that the hotel's secrets were not confined to old books. They seemed to seep from the very walls, waiting to be uncovered. On his final night at the Stanley Hotel, Stephen felt a profound sense of anticipation. He had learned much about the hotel's dark history, but the truth remained elusive. As midnight approached, he stood outside room 407, the very place where he had witnessed the ghostly figure. His heart raced as he prepared to confront whatever lay within. The room was eerily silent as Stephen entered, the air growing colder with each step. He set up his camera, hoping to capture any paranormal activity. Hours ticked by, the only sound the rhythmic ticking of the clock. Exhaustion began to set in, and just as he started to drift off, the temperature plummeted. A cold wind swept through the room, and the lights flickered erratically. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, Stephen saw movement, a shadow by the window. He turned to see the apparition of Elizabeth Wilson, her figure faint and translucent. Her sorrowful eyes met his, and she began to speak, her voice barely a whisper. The words were lost in the chill of the room, but the plea in her eyes was unmistakable. As quickly as she had appeared, Elizabeth faded away, leaving Stephen in stunned silence. The experience was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. He had come to the Stanley Hotel seeking a story, and he had found something far more profound. The hotel's ghosts were not just legends. They were real, and their stories were woven into the very fabric of the building. Stephen knew he had witnessed something extraordinary, a glimpse into a world where the past and present coexisted, and the line between life and death blurred.